All right. Well, I'm joined today on the podcast with my friend Yannick Willemin. He is the founder of Catalysium. Uh, Yannick's been on the podcast a number of times, mostly at events like JEC and CAMAX. But you know what? We're going to do I wanted to reach out to him. We've had some discussions because he's doing some really cool stuff with his platform. So I wanted to have him back on to kind of showcase some of the work that he's doing in the composites industry over in Europe. So, Yannick, thank you again for joining me on Composites Weekly.
Yes, thanks, Jonathan, for the invitation. Great to be on Composites Weekly again. And
Yeah,
as you say, we are both nurturing platforms
yeah,
for the better of the composites ecosystem. That's kind of our common treat.
yeah,
So yeah, happy to be here and let's start.
yeah, that's right. So, for our listeners here on the other side, over across the pond here in the States who aren't as familiar, because you're well known over in Europe, but give us a little background on yourself. You're an engineer by trade, by formal, your training formally was as an engineer, right? And then you went
Yeah,
in, you've served a number of roles since then, but tell us a little bit about your history in the world of composite materials.
no, sure. And I will pick the word training because it all started by training and racing on
Yeah.
road bikes as a cyclist and triathlete. Then I became passionate about my kind of chair, my everyday's office, my
Yeah.
kind of cycling office.
Yeah.
Decided to go study materials and mechanics as an engineer. Became an engineer in France. For those who didn't pick the accent,
Yeah.
and, and then after my studies, I moved to Germany,
Hmm.
worked quite a few years, 13 years at SGL Carbon, which is probably a familiar word for the composites ecosystem.
Yep.
Was a fantastic extended university. I call it like that because so many business units doing different things. I started with the carbon ceramic brake discs for
Yeah.
sports cars, which is cool for the application, but also cool for the material because CMCs are becoming a hot topic again around defense, aerospace,
Yes.
chemical industry. We see a lot of cool stuff here, especially in the startup field. Then, yeah, I was also in graphite electrodes, learning about steel melting, and then came back to more, I would say, classic composite textiles and fibers
Hmm.
within the SGL portfolio and was leading the innovation strategy at the end of the 13 years. Did two MBAs in parallel, so I extend a bit my engineering knowledge by business knowledge. Joined 9T Labs, a spin-off from ETH Zurich. So joined the startup world after some corporate career. We grew nicely, the team and the technology till end of 2024 when I left and started my own journey,
Hmm.
officially under the company Catalysium, which was not that visible, which is more visible since a few weeks. I mean, it was always there, but I was not super, I would say, loud about it, just
Yeah.
trying to shape stuff, but we will come back to that.
Sure.
Yeah, now flying on my own, say so from corporate, from a few thousand people to a bunch of 50 people at the startup, and now back to one and enjoying it.
Yeah. Sounds like you're having a blast. We were talking. I follow your work on LinkedIn, and you're really out there. I love the work that you're doing with, you know, the video that you're putting together. That takes place at a lot of these um, companies that you're highlighting in the industry. I think you're doing a great job. So, talk to us about what the platform, Catalysium. I've got the website showcased, and it says 3 pillars, one ecosystem, one ambition. I like that tagline. What are those? Talk about a little bit about the 3 pillars that you have highlighted there. What is the foundation, and then what is the purpose?
Yeah, no, great. I mean, thanks. Yeah, the tagline, as in general, the website is more a landing page. I mean,
Yeah,
just like in racing, I don't like too much. Too much, say, distraction. So it's
sure.
just straight to the point. So
Yep.
basically, Catalysium. Obviously, I love composites. I was always in composites, or even on composites. If you take my background in cycling,
Hmm.
therefore, I really love the family, the entire industry, feel really well, and just want to support. And that's why I created Catalysium as you said, a platform, an ecosystem supporting platform. The ambition obviously is to push forward companies who are growing. So that's where the first pillar of the three pillars Catalysium Advisory is acting, is really supporting companies in their growth, and those companies can be very broad: startups, mid cap, SMEs, and corporates, because all of those organizations are looking at growth, whatever it means. Definitions are broad, but I think the fact that I spent quite a lot of time in different, say, environments from an organizational point of view helped me to adapt quickly, supporting from strategy to implementation here.
Hmm.
And that's on the industry side. There is also an investment side. I really enjoy understanding better the the capital flow into our industry, because it's obviously a growth supporting, at least, catalyst, obviously, for our industry when there are financial players supporting it. So here also advising interested investors in looking at what are the opportunities in our industry, eventually also scouting and doing due diligences for them. So that's basically pillar one, the advisory side, which is obviously where I generate most of the revenue for
Yep.
now.
Hmm.
There is also a second pillar, I call it Catalysium Insights. It's basically sharing what happens in our industry, and that means writing. So as you say, I'm visible on LinkedIn. That's probably my main vitrine for now, where I share news on what happens, what I find exciting. I mean, we are both reading a lot and getting a lot of insights from the industry, so I try to share where I can,
Yeah.
to show how active it is and what is eventually a trend versus other topics.
Hmm.
But also writing a newsletter, working with ecosystem players. For example, GEC, as you mentioned, we organize a Jack Investor Day where we invite investors, show them the industry during the Jack World in Paris, working with Composites World on writing some columns. And now, as you mentioned, also I launched a few months ago a YouTube channel called the Composites Catalyst, where I do documentaries and interviews about companies in the field of composites, but also adjacent topics about high performance and where those materials are used. So it can be, especially in the interviews, pretty broad.
Hmm.
And here, obviously, these insights take some time. It's super interesting also for me to learn more about the ecosystem, because when you are doing these documentaries, you spend lots of time inside some great factories with cool people.
Yeah.
So that's also a great way to learn what happens behind the curtains and share a bit of that.
I think
Obviously,
that's a good I think that's
yeah,
a good way to learn. Um, you said documentaries, and I think that kind of summarizes what you do, like these short documentary style
yeah,
videos when you're meeting with these companies. They take you through, you're sitting down with, engineers or heads of companies, and then you're going through the walkthrough, but you're getting a really good overview of a lot of the companies and what the value that they're providing in this industry.
yeah. I think, as you say, I mean, it's sharing what they are providing, but also why they do that. I mean, why are you that crazy to start a
Yeah.
company, either a startup or
Yeah.
bootstrapped, more an SME style company?
Hmm.
Or what does it mean to be a CEO of a big corporate? Because I mean, all of us have dreams to achieve a certain position, but certainly challenges in everyday life. And I think it's
Yeah.
cool to also understand the people behind the industry, because those are the people we are
Yeah.
speaking with. You in your interviews and when you're on the floor, and myself also just being part of the ecosystem. That's the conversations we enjoy, and yeah, sharing a bit of that with the community, I think
Yeah.
is one ambition.
So I want to back up a little bit. You spend a lot of time around some of these innovative startups. I know I see you at JEC, or a lot of these startup booster companies that are there with a lot of their entries. I mean, you're meeting with them, talking to them, connecting them, helping them, because a lot of them don't know where to go from there. I mean, it's one thing to have something great in the lab or in R&D, but scaling that is a different story. What do you see? Because I've had this conversation lately with companies. We had a company on last week that does. It's a graphene company here in the States, and it said, that's been the biggest challenge. Graphene's amazing material, but scaling it up is another thing entirely different than what you see in the lab, right? you know,
Indeed. Yeah.
Scaling a product like that into to make it profitable is an entirely different story. So I'm curious from your perspective, because you've held a lot of different titles. You've been in engineering, you've been in marketing. I think you bring a unique perspective in that you've held a lot of different positions. So you see things from a lot of different angles from where you've worked. So how does that kind of help you with a lot of these younger companies, these new companies that are trying to get a foothold in the industry and hopefully, connect with investors out there?
Yeah, I mean, good point on, yeah, what do I see out there? And I think, yeah, Jack is doing fantastic work. They're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the
Yeah.
startup booster. So certainly
Hmm.
became a great vehicle to be qualified when you are among the 20 startups selected.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, it's a huge visibility tool, but there is all the remaining of the year and years afterward, even if you qualified, where, yeah, you are, I mean, a lot of founders, which is very great because they are passionate. They come out of universities, they have worked on a master
Hmm.
project or even a PhD on very interesting technology,
Right.
and now they want to bring this technology to a business.
Yeah.
But I mean, and those people are just genius, very talented, studied a lot about technology,
Yeah.
but they didn't study as much about business, obviously.
Business.
So
Yeah.
then it's about creating the right team, especially early stage. It's great if you have a mix of business and tech people.
Hmm.
And I would say what I found interesting is, obviously it's always going to be a challenge in our industry because we are speaking about hardware, and I mean, in hardware it's hard, so it's a hard game
Sure.
to get it to a profitable business because it takes time. I mean,
Right.
the industries where our materials are performing, obviously they are quick industries, I call them, like luxury, sports, and leisure.
Yeah.
They might be quicker, but certainly most of the companies starting in the composites field, they are looking at aerospace, they
Hmm.
are looking at eventually medical, and so I would say industries which are highly regulated, and that takes time. I mean,
Sure.
and that's the beauty of it because we are all enjoying safe flights, etc. But here, I think there is a challenge for founders, especially technical founders, to understand the journey and to get faster access to the industry, to get faster feedback, because you don't want to understand that you are on the wrong path 3 years after founding. So the faster you get feedback, I think that it's essential to really bring the startups with the established players so that they can really get the best out of the
Yeah.
feedback. But it's also a lot, and I see it on the other side. There are actually quite a lot of investors interested in these high performance materials, manufacturing technologies, etc. But sometimes even investors, they don't have the right understanding on how long it can take, and then it's pretty stressful, isn't
Right.
it? Because a fund typically is set for 10 years. So even if they invest at the beginning of the fund timeline, they will want to harvest, to basically have an exit after 6 to 7 years, eventually stretching it a bit. But at one point, they will be stressed because they need to give returns to their own investors, so-called LPs. And if an investor is in your board and is stressed about that, that's not going to be very nice conversation with the startup. And also for investors to make them understand, okay, no, this startup is at early stage, they want to go into space or aerospace. I mean, only in some specific cases they might be faster, but it will certainly take a long time and play with your patience.
Yeah.
So I think also here, what I aim to do through writing position papers currently a lot, speaking with those investors, bringing them to events, is really showing them, behind the curtain, why is it such a great industry to invest in?
Yeah.
But you have to know that it's also not an easy game, because it takes time.
It's a long game. Yeah. It's not a quick win or short-term investment that you're going to see returns right away. So you're trying to you're not only educating the startups and helping them understand, but also the investors. Like, here's the realistic scenario that you're looking at, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it probably, like you said, it helps to bring them to events like JEC so that they can see firsthand.
Yeah, it's really grasp. I mean, the cool thing with those events is, as it's pretty, I would say, condensed family or environment, you can meet CEOs of the biggest companies in composites. You can meet also end users. A lot of end users are visiting JEC. You can meet those startups. You can meet a lot of SMEs, because we are always speaking about investors and think about startups and venture capital, but there is a lot of things happening in the mid-cap market through M&A, aggregation, etc. So I think that's also a fantastic play field, especially now that we see huge industries going upstream in their value chain. When we speak aerospace, defense, etc., looking at, okay, what really adds value in the entire value chain behind those planes, those drones, etc. They find out, there is this interesting industry which are composites, and what is it about, and how to get an understanding for this industry. I think that's where I always enjoy going from the end market, and the end markets are so different based on where composites are going, and then going upstream and make those investors, which might be market related, understand how they can benefit from composites in their portfolio.
Yeah. What are some big opportunities right now from your perspective in Europe? I know sustainability, recycling is a big topic. I mean, we're talking more about that here in the States, but outside of that, where do you see the biggest opportunities, industries? You mentioned CMCs are, because of the, defense is kind of ramping up. So ceramic matrix composites are certainly back in play. I mean, what are some other things out there that you see that are really areas where investors should be looking?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, recycling, obviously, or the entire sustainability topic, has certainly seen a lot of interest for the last few years. I think now we are at a turning point where it's not about if the technology is able to make it, but it needs to become a business, a real business. I think that's a big question mark now. Can it be scaled? How can it be scaled? And how can it generate substantial revenue?
Yeah.
Beside just making something good. So that's where it's going to be interesting, because there's a lot of movement from the technologies to upstream and downstream, really understanding where is the value created and who needs to work with whom, because establishing a value chain around waste is more complex than a single startup can manage. So this needs to be something which is made with big players, especially waste management companies, etc. And of course, bring in innovation from startups, smaller companies, also big corporates who worked on this topic for a while. Then you mentioned CMCs. I mean, it's quite a hot topic. It's a small niche, but when you think about it, there are so many interesting applications. So of course, you will think high temperature. So everywhere where you want to optimize energy consumption, think aerospace, in the turbine, the hot zones, etc. When you get to some limits of metal alloys, how to bring those materials, but then of course it also takes time to qualify them. Of course, I mean, related to defense, a lot of things are interesting with CMCs, from hypersonic flying items also to ballistic, because those very hard materials can protect. So there is a ballistic topic behind CMCs. There is a friction topic. I mean, I was working in carbon ceramic brake discs, but there are so many friction related applications. Think about very high towers with elevators, huge energy to brake those elevators, etc., while needing also light materials. All heat exchangers in chemical industry with very complex heat exchanging schemes, which you could not manufacture because you can only drill straight and you cannot drill some crazy channels. So yeah, so many interesting things. And actually not that many players are working. I mean, there are big, huge companies working on CMCs, and only a few startups and smaller companies. I think that's a very interesting niche where I see a lot of movement currently.
Yeah. You know, one thing I'm seeing is more strategic partnerships. You're seeing more partnerships with different material suppliers, which, you know, I think it's easier when you have a good partnership with other, you know, with companies coming together to work on whether it's recycling, whatever technology you're developing, to have the support of the suppliers involved, instead of, because it's very difficult for companies to operate completely independently on this without having some support. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that, because I see more of this happening where you get, you know, partnerships from different, different companies coming together, really focused on one end goal.
Yeah, I think especially when it's driven by an end goal, or I mean, be it now at ecosystem level, building a new value chain. That doesn't happen that often, but that is the kind of challenge or opportunity with recycling. But also for more niche topics, I would say, if you have an end application in mind and you really want to get it at scale, this end product, whatever it is, then that helps have to steer the focus of an entire value chain, big and small players. And we see also now in the deal making, I mean, I was in Farnborough not long ago, end of July, and of course you have these gigantic companies. We speak about MBDA, BAE System, Lockheed Martin, and so on. So these gigantic companies, and they are actually acquiring or investing into smaller companies, startups, and SMBs. But what is interesting is, while in the past they would really kind of swallow it and make it their own, and try to fit it into their corporate organization. Now, those small companies, they kind of have a lot of independence, even on their own supply chains and so on, within this big ecosystem. So it's kind of giving them support through, of course, access to end application, but still keeping this agility. I mean, this is always very difficult, because you want to be very safe, and obviously you need to make sure that your supply chain is also delivering at scale. On the other side, you want also to keep this agility, making you more innovative over time. So I think this is what the big players are experimenting now for quite a lot of years, and slowly they find their own model how it can work.
Speaking of, you mentioned supply chain. How's the supply chain right now in Europe with the with the conflict that's going on in Iran? We've talked about the Strait of Hormuz, open, shut, open, open for a little bit, shut. Negotiations going, not so much, and then it's shut down. And right now, it looks like it's shut down for quite some time, unless some kind of deal is reached. But how is that affecting supply chains right now in Europe for these petrochemical based type additives and applications?
Yeah, I see. It's interesting because it's also a good eye opener. I mean, I say good because it's good to learn. I don't think conflicts should be the only reason to wake up, but yeah, sadly they do, because logistics are very efficient when they work. But yeah, when they break, and I mean, this is a conflict we also had a few years ago. This huge vessel blocking the channel, the Evergreen vessel, which also blocked the supply chain within hours. And this makes us realize that, I mean, at the end, plastics and carbon fibers, they come from petrol, still at high percentage level. I think, if I'm not wrong, for sure, over 95% of carbon fibers and plastics are coming from are oil-based. So obviously, we are depending somewhere on the supply chain. On the other side, I mean, it's a tiny fraction of the extracted oil in the refineries. So I would not bother too much. But I think what is a big topic in general is material independency and sovereignty. This is certainly a big topic where you see some convergence of interest, from sustainability, which was more, oh, how can we do better for the planet, to, okay, there is another point behind sustainability, is also what we are using in our regions. How can we reuse it? Because basically it's a local mine, if you consider it like that, versus a mine or a material source coming from outside of Europe, that now just centering on Europe. And I think this is very interesting, because it's also how you formulate the challenge, and what are you solving as a problem. If you're a recycling company, are you solving only a CO2 footprint topic, or are you actually enabling countries to be less depending on material imports? And then also for investors, it becomes a very different story where you put your capital, I think. And this is interesting when you are having these debates on sovereignty.
Yeah, I just looked. You're right. I ran it through AI. So about 90 to 95% of commercial carbon fiber is from PAN, which is a petroleum-derived polymer, polyacrylonitrile. So,
So, I mean, at the end, we can certainly not import the oil fields. But what we can do, obviously, is at least steer back some of the material waste, be it post-production or
Yeah.
end of life, back to maybe not the same application, but if it just decreases a bit the amount of virgin fiber we are importing, or we might actually be able to cover through production in Europe, because there is still production in Europe, but there is certainly also imports, so that we can, of course, optimize a bit or decrease the dependency on imports. That's certainly an interesting topic.
How would you? I'm curious from your perspective, and in terms of deep tech investment, how would you compare Europe to North America right now? And maybe maybe that's not a good maybe you don't have enough. I don't know. You've obviously you've worked with some companies based in North America, but what would you? I mean, from your perspective, how would you compare those two?
I think in general, even though Europe is becoming better, better in as such as there is more capital to allocate into, I would say, innovation or early stage companies, there is still a gap. I think, and it's not the only reason, there's a cultural reason how in the US, especially, let's take US, capital is allocated and investments are done.
Yeah.
For me, it's also, and this is, and sometimes I hear, in Europe, we kind of need to replicate the US systems, but we are just living in very different societies. So we are strongly social backed, I would say. So safety and on everyday's life, the social system is meant to support the people, which has pros and cons. I think for people who are really risk takers and want to grow fast, this feels frustrating. And I think a huge difference is just how you build your social system, because in the US, you have to basically care for yourself. So you have to save your money, invest it in a certain way at a private level, and that will be your pension later. Here, you are paying into a big pot and it's redistributed. It doesn't work out mathematically anymore because of the aging population, but politically, it has not been reverted. Only a few countries have done it. Everybody knows they have to do it, but it's not a popular decision to make as a politician. But that means, long story short, that you have all these pension funds, which, is the best vehicle you can have for innovation, because it's kind of forever money, it's huge amount of money.
Sure.
And you are basically always getting a lot of cash in, and you have to invest it into, of course, a broad portfolio of investments, safer and more risky ones, to just at least generate more than inflation. And here, first of all, in absolute value, there is a sheer difference between the pension funds in the US and Europe, for the reason I was explaining before.
Sure.
But then there is also, for the capital allocation of one single fund, is a factor at least 10 into, I'd say, startups in the US versus Europe. So even for the same pension fund with a lot of capital to allocate, the way they build their portfolio is, again, more suited towards also very early stage, more venture capital like investment.
Yeah.
I think, I would say that's what explains this huge factor, really, this order of magnitude difference in the investments into the ecosystem. And that doesn't play such a role at early stage, because I think seed and up to Series A capital allocation is very good here, because we have small ecosystems, everybody knows everybody, so it's easier to also identify the opportunities. But then when you need growth capital, especially in our industry, we are speaking about physical factories, materials, and so on, and that costs a lot to deploy and to build. And I think, and at that growth stage, a lot of investment is then done also through the US, so kind of also capturing some value, which is great. I mean, we could say, okay, we are doing the first step, and the US is taking the scaling step, but this is also generating conversations, at least, or debates around, are you not giving up your sovereignty by having external or out of Europe financing?
What about AI right now? What's the difference? I mean, I know here in the North America, it's like the wild, wild west. I mean, it's like you're throwing up data centers all over the place. What I know it's a little more regulated in Europe, right? Is that right?
I think Europe is generally regulating a bit more. Also, it's difficult to regulate something you cannot grasp, or which is developing faster than you can regulate.
Yeah.
I think this also, I mean, you see that in many ways, even with social media and so on, that now there are regulation put it in place, because now that those platforms exist and people have some experience with them, you can then control what you don't like. But on the other side, with AI moving that fast, it's difficult. Of course, there is a big debate on energy, because that's certainly, and I think for all regions, we see that it's quite, but it's interesting. It's coming back to, all of a sudden, it's not just putting money into software, and you find out, at the end, you need infrastructure. You need physical infrastructure to generate this energy, to distribute this energy, to cool those data centers, and which is, I mean, fascinating from an engineering point of view, because you go back to materials at the end. You need physical items to make it happen. But that means all of a sudden, you cannot build a nuclear reactor within a day. So you face these timelines, which people want to scale faster the use case than the infrastructure behind, which is an opportunity. I mean, also for our industry with all the special materials. But coming back to AI in general, I think the very interesting point is, even for I think startups and the younger generation, they use their tools just because they are there. I mean, they don't overthink about it.
Yeah.
But already now, when you take the SMBs, I mean, very established companies generating some good revenue. From an investment point of view, you see a lot of investors entering these boring businesses and just leveraging on what kind of AI stack you can use on admin, on being better in supervising a production and so on, and generating increased revenues just by optimizing the company with some AI stack. I think that is a low-hanging fruit where you see also investors entering.
It's crazy. It's amazing. I've interviewed a few people lately these are smaller companies, but they're using, I mean, the way they're using AI right now is, as you said, from an administrative standpoint, to do the work of about 3 people in their business, and this isn't making the product. This is all the administrative stuff that goes behind it, including developing their own software, in-house customized software for their operating system. It's tailored to their business. So it's pretty incredible. Not only the capabilities of just from, a lot of people are familiar with ChatGPT and Claude and all of these platforms through content, but just from a sheer standpoint of coding, software development, applications like that, it's really doing some amazing stuff right now. So it's,
and I think that's where you should start, and then obviously you can go beyond, and then you can develop
Yeah,
new materials based on
absolutely.
LLMs specifically trained on materials. And that's where it gets interesting, is also who is developing their own protected AI codes, so
Yeah,
that they can really generate
yeah,
value to their, shareholders, or to their company
yeah,
in general. Um, and that's gonna, that's already interesting now when you look in, even in the composites industry, what some deals who were done in the last few months, with kind of from the outside or from the inside of
yeah,
composites industry, seems huge investments. And but then if you understand that there is an AI stack in the valuation, that gets also very interesting, because
yeah,
it's gonna be also the differentiation between the ones who overgrow and the other ones who just,
yeah.
were part of the value chain, but they are not hyper scaling.
Right. I want to go back before we wrap up to uh, Catalysium,
Yeah.
the composites catalyst. How can people learn more? I want
Hmm.
to kind of direct people where they can. First of all, we got the website down at the
Yeah.
bottom, and we'll have that on our show page. But for your YouTube channel, how can people learn more or check out your documentary videos?
Yeah.
We'll link to that as well. But where can people find those?
No, sure. I think the website slash landing page has everything. On the top right, you also
Mhm.
have the icons to the YouTube channel, the Composites Catalyst. You have direct access, obviously, to the LinkedIn channel and to the Substack. There is a Substack landing page,
Mhm.
currently having a newsletter, which is also basically automated as a podcast.
Yeah,
But and now we
that's
will do,
cool. So you can
yeah,
do podcasts through Substack now, right?
correct, yeah. And
That's
then
cool. I didn't know that.
and next step is, you can already do it, it's just a matter of time, is basically take all your content, including this Composites Weekly interviews or
Yeah.
podcasts, and with your voice train the model so that it can read the newsletter in your tone of voice and how you are
Wow.
building sentences. That's not very new, but still to be done on my long list of to-dos. And also on Substack, I will have, now it's all for free, the content. We will keep it like that, but then we will have a resource library where we
Mhm.
have position papers, more extended articles, which are easy to find. They might be shared on LinkedIn for free, but LinkedIn is often a pain
Yeah.
to find something which you remember you read 6 months ago, but it's impossible to find again on LinkedIn. So that's why we plan to have a bigger library
Yeah.
on Substack. Obviously, always reach out to me. I'm pretty reactive. You can probably find everything online directly on LinkedIn. My email address is also public. Probably you can find my phone number also very quickly. So just feel free. I'm often at events in
Yes.
the composites field or also around it. So yeah, feel free to just reach out, have a meeting. If you are around Zurich, of course, we can have a coffee here. And yeah, I would
And,
say just
and you'll be
reach out.
back. You'll be in the States in November. You won't be at Camex, but you'll be at the carbon fiber show
Yeah,
in November, right?
indeed. So I will miss Atlanta, think for
Hmm.
Chemex,
Yeah.
but I will discover Huntsville, Alabama. So
It's a great place.
certainly, I'm
Big,
looking forward.
big
Yeah,
aerospace town.
yeah, aerospace, space. I think
You should
NASA is not far.
visit the Space Museum there in Huntsville. Like
No,
the
definitely that's on the program. So for sure we will do that.
for
And
sure.
yeah, that's gonna be my travel to the US for end of
Will
the
you be
year.
doing some content during that week at the show? Like,
Yeah, pre and post conference, we plan to do some recordings. I
mhm.
say we because we are working together with Yatin.
Yeah.
Some
So you
might
coming
know
too?
Yatin from the Thermoforge YouTube channel. So
Yeah.
a niche in composites, but a really cool niche about thermoplastics. So we create content together. He's the guy behind the camera, but also, yeah, doing a lot of support
Yeah.
before, during, and after the recordings.
No,
And he
he's
will
great.
be at Chemex.
He'll be at CampX. Will he be with you at in Huntsville?
Yeah, most probably we will have a joint trip so that we can record some
Sure. Yeah.
some interviews, some content eventually at the conference. Use the fact that there are a lot of cool people around to also have some conversations, if possible, recorded. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to put that date down. I'm going to try to make that. Just since you're going to be there, right? I mean, coming up
Let's
November
do
the
it.
10th. So we'll put that on the docket. I'll have to get down there and we'll plan a meeting. Yannick, it's been fun, man. Enjoy having you on. Always enjoy catching up, and let's talk further offline, and continue to look forward to supporting your platform in any way possible, directing our listeners to your platform. I know you've got some really great content that you're putting together out there, and also encourage people to follow you and subscribe on your Substack platform, and as well as follow you on LinkedIn as well. We'll have those links on our show page so people can find you easily. So
thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the conversation as always, and hope you have a wonderful week ahead. If you would hold tight, I'm going to close out, and we'll talk on the back end. Again, that is Yannick Willemin of Catalysium. You can find him at catalysium.ch. You can visit the website. And then again, we'll have on our show page this week, we'll have links to his YouTube channel as well as his LinkedIn page and Substack as well. So great conversation, and we wish you all the best. Have a great week. We'll see you next episode.